My body, my choice. A phrase we've heard repeated over and over again for years by feminists and leftists as a defense for their obsession over abortion and their so-called right to kill a baby in the womb. Believing that because the baby is in their body, it is somehow a part of their body, and therefore they should be able to remove it as simply as you might a mole on your arm. Or even then, those that can at least acknowledge that the baby is a separate body, they still believe they have the right to remove the baby from their body because it's their body and they no longer want it inside them. My body, my choice. Well, this phrase has now found a new home among right-leaning circles with Republicans and conservatives who oppose mask requirements and vaccine mandates, stating the government doesn't have the power to force them to wear a mask, and even more poignantly, the government doesn't have the power to force them to get vaccinated, as it's their body and they get to decide what goes into it, especially in regards to something they have very little information on and are unable to make an informed decision about. The government saying, "Trust us, it's safe," isn't good enough, because it's my body, my choice. Both of these viewpoints make sense from the groups that are using the phrase, but are both groups being consistent in their belief of the phrase? As the Democrats and the leftists believe 100% that it's a woman's right to choose what's in her body, and that includes the baby growing inside her. So much so that House Democrats led by Nancy Pelosi have passed a bill titled the Women's Health Protection Act, framing it that a woman's choice to abort her baby is a constitutional right and must be protected at all costs. This is the rhetoric coming from the Democrat Party, all the way up to the Democrat president.
As the president said this morning, its extreme Texas law blatantly violates the constitutional right established under Roe v. Wade and upheld as precedent for nearly half a century. It will significantly impair women's access to the health care they need, particularly for communities of color and individuals with low incomes.
Except for the fact that a court ruling, even if it is the Supreme Court, does not get to establish a constitutional right. This is just a facade that the Democrat Party has always hid behind because nothing has ever challenged the ruling of Roe v. Wade, to the point of it being took up by the Supreme Court again, which was a horrible ruling, by the way. Some believe the Supreme Court may not even want to take up a case again because of the turmoil it may cause. But even then, even if abortion was somehow a right protected by the Constitution, the very man that said his administration is deeply committed to the constitutional right established in Roe v. Wade nearly 5 decades ago and will protect and defend that right, the wannabe tough guy that said that, also said that no amendment to the Constitution is absolute in regards to the Second Amendment.
They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
This just once again shows the hypocrisy of the Democrats and the left, that they'll say whatever they need to in order to defend their positions while saying the exact opposite to attack the right's position. Either way, the point is the Democrat Party is all in on the belief that abortion is a right and that a woman gets to decide what is in her body. My body, my choice. It's just very strange that those very women Democrats claim get to decide if a baby gets to stay in her body or not don't get the same choice on whether a vaccine gets put into her body or not. The entire my body, my choice disappears when it's a vaccine, as the entire Democrat Party has also gone all in when it comes to vaccine mandates, with Biden declaring a new vaccine mandate that he himself said has nothing to do with personal choice.
We must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements. But we need to do more. This is not about freedom or personal choice.
So, when it comes to a woman's so-called health decision in regards to the baby she's carrying inside her, she gets to decide if that baby stays or not, because it's her right to choose what is in her body. My body, my choice. But that very same woman doesn't get to make a health decision when it comes to getting a vaccine. Because as Biden said, it's not about freedom or personal choice. It's not your body or your choice anymore. So Democrats are going to do everything they can, apart from physically holding you down and forcibly jabbing you, at least for now. They're going to require you to take a vaccine to be employed, travel, eat out, gather, and frankly just have a normal life. This is the absolute inconsistency that comes from the Democrats and the left. That just like with the amendment inconsistency in protecting something they claim is a right versus something that actually is a right, that's straight up listed in the Bill of Rights, they're inconsistent with their own phrases like my body, my choice. Because the phrase only goes as far as abortion goes. Outside of abortion, the phrase for the left no longer means anything. That's why they mock and belittle the right for using the phrase when talking about masks and the vaccine. As from the left's point of view, Republicans and the conservatives are the ones being the hypocrites. Because how can someone say they're, for my body, my choice, when you prevent a woman from getting to decide what goes in her body or not in regards to a baby? Well, the question is the right being, as inconsistent as the left when it comes to my body, my choice? Well, first we have to look at abortion and what the right believes about it. And as I'm a right-leaning conservative, I'll be adding in some of my own views as well. So first, the very bedrock argument that I would assume anyone that says they are pro-life believes in, and this includes myself, is that life begins at conception. That moment when sperm meets egg and new DNA is formed, which is the basis of life. And that basis is the start of why people on the right oppose abortion from a moral standpoint. That you are killing a life before it, ever has a chance to have a life. Now, I would think most people on the right, and again, I include myself in this, understand that the topic of abortion isn't just black and white. And while killing this life is wrong from a moral level, sometimes principles don't always play out as perfectly as we'd like in an immoral world. Because there are things like rape and incest in the world. There are rare complications that can come with a woman becoming pregnant. These things sadly happen. And so because we live in a flawed, immoral world, situations like these are ones we unfortunately have to deal with. So I think any of us, pro-life or not, can understand that if a pregnancy is affecting the mother's health to, where she may die, after we've exhausted all the other options, an abortion may be necessary, even if that act is still an immoral one. And we know it's an immoral one because, we feel bad having to do it. Even Democrats like to reiterate that having an abortion is a tough decision, although their beliefs on the matter would lead you to think otherwise, but we'll get to that. So, even rape is something that I believe we can all emphasize with. Very few women, I would think, would want to be raped and then have to carry the child of the rapist. Maybe some will, and I applaud them for that. But I think it's perfectly understandable to not want that. However, even in a situation like rape, and maybe even incest, there is still a level of responsibility. That if you are raped, and we all know what the possible consequences of that may be, you still need to make an effort to make sure you aren't pregnant. Or if you are and don't want to carry it, you have an abortion before it develops too far. Because that's what we're talking about. That even in the case of something like rape, we have to draw a line somewhere. And I believe these heartbeat bills that are being passed around the country are a good place to draw that line. Are they perfect? Of course not. There is always going to be something somewhere that someone can dredge up and say, look here, you can't even have an abortion if these very small, completely random scenarios happen. Well, maybe in the case of those random scenarios, we can have an honest discussion on what to do about them. But in the meantime, we need to put these lines in place because the abdication of responsibility is what's led to the point of rampant abortion and the need for these laws in the first place. Because Democrats and the left have gone insane in their views on abortion and what life even is. To start, their views on sex and its connection to the reality that sex is what leads to pregnancy appears to be what the underlying issue is. As the left want, and have wanted for decades through things like feminism, a sexual revolution. And for the most part, they've gotten it. There was just one little problem with all this gratuitous sex they wanted to start having. That there is a cost for it. the potential of getting pregnant with a child. As if that even needs to be said. But they know this. This is why they want and even need abortions to be readily available. Even with things like birth control, condoms, and other contraception. Because if those things fail to prevent a pregnancy, there needs to be that surefire way to get out of having a child. An abortion. As abortion is a blessing for these people. It's even freedom.
SB 8 has not only caused a near total abortion ban in Texas, it has made it extremely dangerous to be pregnant in Texas, where our maternal morbidity and mortality rate is already unconscionably high, especially for Black women and pregnant people of color. Texas deserves better. I know firsthand that abortion saves lives. For the thousands of people I've cared for, abortion is a blessing. Abortion is an act of love. Abortion is freedom. We need federal protection now.
So this leads us finally back to the my body, my choice argument, which for the left is basically a responsibility argument. They want to say it's a woman's body and she gets to decide what's in her body. Well, if a woman gets to decide, then you're saying she's responsible for her actions, as any adult should be. The problem is Democrats and the left have moved where the act of responsibility takes place. They have moved it from before sex to after sex. Because in reality, the act of choosing to have sex, and I do mean choosing, so this excludes rape, that act is the responsibility of those choosing to engage in sex and the possible consequences of it, as sex equals baby. That is the biological reality. Yet what the left has done is change the reality that sex is what leads to pregnancy to the idea that a woman's choice is what leads to pregnancy. Therefore, a woman can say she doesn't choose to be pregnant even after having sex, even though having sex is what gets you pregnant. This frame of mind is how you can have someone say, and I quote, "When I was in college, I was on birth control, but I accidentally became pregnant." You didn't accidentally become pregnant. You had sex. This quote comes from an article by the Daily Wire talking about how Megan Rapinoe and 500 plus female athletes blast a Mississippi abortion law. The group filed a brief in it which states, women's ability to participate equally in the economic and social life of the nation, including through high school, collegiate, and professional sports, has been facilitated by their ability to control their reproductive lives. Absent the right to access safe and legal abortion care and the ability of the woman to retain the ultimate control over her destiny and body, women's sports would not be the enormous success they are today. So forth and so on. Notice what they're insinuating but not outright stating. That in order for women to, as they say, participate equally in the economic and social life of the nation, they have to be able to have sex without the burden of a child preventing them from doing all these things. Because in their minds, from a woke feminist worldview, they believe men have this advantage over them. That men get to engage in all the sex they want without the worry of a child holding them back. That's why they said equally. So they need abortion to balance out this unfair advantage. Abortion is literally equity in their eyes. As again, notice what is said. That absent the right to access safe and legal abortion care and the ability of the woman to retain the ultimate control over her destiny and her body, women's sports would not be the enormous success they are today. But abortion or no abortion isn't what's preventing that. Sex is what's preventing that. If you just don't have sex, you'd never have to worry about it. Yet sex is what they want because culture has pushed sex as a casual activity. Having removed children as the consequences of sex with the promise of unfettered abortions. Is it any wonder that young women grow up with this when practically every cultural institution pushes sex everywhere? You have things like Cosmopolitan, as a so-called fashion and entertainment magazine aimed at women, that throw every type of sexual act and taboo at them. You have places like Teen Vogue, talking about anal sex. You have schools teaching sex to children as young as possibly 5 years old.
Hi guys, Joy here. Just wanted to show you my new favorite book that's being taught in schools for sex ed for kids that are ages 10 and up, and is now on a bill proposed to be taught to 5-year-olds. So the first illustration I came across was this adorable girl bent over completely naked with her anus showing and her chest dangling down. So if you wanted to know what that looks like, there you go. Let's see what else. Oh, it has good illustrations on how boys and girls can masturbate. You know, like what objects feel the best and the best time to do it and that sort of thing. And then it also shows you how to have intercourse between men and women, men and men, and women and women. And there's a detailed paragraph here about how to make that all work as far as rhythm and making things feel good and whatnot. So I just thought parents would like to know.
And when they finally grow up, they have popular cultural figures pushing messages like, be a slut, be kinky, and have all the consensual sex you want. This is my body, my choice. It's their body to do with as they please, and they get to choose how much sex they want to have. But once that choice is made, a baby is the real possibility of that choice. And while birth control and other contraception do a rather great job of preventing pregnancy, if a baby results from the choice to have sex, despite the contraception, or they're just too stupid to use it, then we've moved past the choice to your responsibility. And your responsibility is to the child that you've created by the choice of using your body for sex. Now, don't misunderstand. While I do believe that it's their responsibility to have the child, and I believe that life begins at conception, as I said before, principles don't always play out as perfectly as we'd like. And while abortion may be needed for certain rare situations, we still need a line drawn somewhere. And again, I do think these heartbeat laws are a good place to draw that line, as a heartbeat is the defining factor by which we judge if you're alive or not. So once that growing baby inside you has a heartbeat, it's alive and a living person by all technical definitions, and shouldn't just be arbitrarily killed because someone wants out of their responsibility. As those on the right like to point out, the person growing inside your womb isn't your body. And frankly, these pro-abortion women just need to accept the fact that whether you believe it to be by nature or by God, women are the childbearers and the means by which human life is created. And there is no getting out of that. And yet, time and time again, these highly disturbed pro-abortion leftists can't even acknowledge the baby growing inside a woman is even a person or even alive, and that there should be no line at all as to when you can end the life of a baby.
Where might you draw the line? I mean, what is a reasonable term at which to say at that point you don't abort?
Well, actually, my view is that abortion should be legal from up till term, because then you're not controlling women's bodies.
Kill a baby at any point up until term. Also, you're not controlling women's bodies. Well, as I've already explained, at this point, if a woman is pregnant, outside of rape, of course, she's already made the choice by engaging in sex. This is now all about getting out of her responsibility of that choice. But yet, these people have no issues with killing a baby up until term because they don't even view the baby as even being alive.
Why do you make that parallel? I mean, what is the concern? Because, you know, many are thinking about the unborn child, of course.
Well, a 6-week-old fetus, embryo, in fact, is not a child. A heartbeat doesn't make something human. And a 6-week-old embryo is not viable. Many pregnancies are lost naturally at that stage. It's not. I don't understand where that time has been picked from. You know, a heartbeat doesn't mean anything.
A heartbeat doesn't mean anything? Is this woman serious? This is so utterly retarded, I don't even know where to begin. I think I'll let Carl Benjamin, our Boris Sargon, answer this because I love his response to this woman.
I don't understand where that time has been picked from. You know, a heartbeat doesn't mean anything.
Hang on, if it can die, it should die.
Just saying, a heartbeat is a necessary condition for a living human. And so I love this framing. A heartbeat doesn't mean anything. It means that they're alive, you psychopath. You know, it's how we distinguish the living from the dead, is whether they have a heartbeat or not. You know,
These people are psychopaths because in order for them to hold these views, they have to absolutely brainwash themselves into seeing a baby growing inside the womb as not human. That it's not even a living being until it's born.
But the point is that, you know, it's when we're born that matters. Before we're born, we are not human. We are not
human.
people.
We are
not
human, and
we're
there are
potential.
Going so far as to even describe a child growing inside the womb, the most natural thing in the world, the very biological mechanism by which human beings are created, they will literally call them parasites.
An unborn baby that's perhaps, 8 or 9 pounds in weight outside of the mother's body versus inside the mother's body, if we talk about a term pregnancy.
Because when it's inside the mother's body, the mother is keeping it alive. The mother is feeding it. The mother is giving it all the nutrients. She's carrying it around. It's like a parasite, really, when you're pregnant.
And this is the sentiment that has been repeated over and over by pro-abortion activists, that a baby growing inside the womb is not human, that it's just a clump of cells, that it's literally a parasite.
It's not body autonomy if it's a 9-month-old baby.
Because a fetus is literally a parasite. Like, it is sucking the life from a mother.
Yeah.
Every single day. Like, that's literally what happens. That's not even like...
Not a mother, I'm guessing.
Like,
Are you?
sure.
I don't.
Yeah, no.
I'm not the one referring to a baby as a parasite. That seems pretty harsh.
But that's actually what happens. Like, I'm not even joking. Like...
So this is the mindset they have that allows them to just view pregnancy, the child growing inside the mother, as nothing more than a woman's decision. A decision on whether to allow the child to grow and to have a future or to end that future. A decision on whether or not the child is even going to have moral status, as this so-called professor from Princeton University will explain.
In some of my work, I defend a liberal position about early abortion. So I defend the view that there's nothing morally bad about early abortion. So a lot of people think, well, it's permissible to have an abortion, but something bad happens when the fetus dies. And I think if a fetus hasn't ever been conscious, it hasn't ever had any experiences, and we abort it at that stage, that actually nothing morally bad happens. And this view might seem unattractive because it might seem that it dictates a cold attitude towards all early fetuses. But what I think is that actually, among early fetuses, there are two very different kinds of beings. So, James, when you were an early fetus, and Elliot, when you were an early fetus, all of us, I think that we already did have moral status then. But we had moral status in virtue of our futures, in virtue of the fact that we were the beginning stages of persons. But some early fetuses will die early in pregnancy, either due to abortion or miscarriage. And in my view, that's a very different kind of entity. That's something that doesn't have a future as a person, and it doesn't have moral status.
So this is the my body, my choice argument from the left on abortion. That the choice to have sex, which is an act involving the body, that is the biological mechanism by which we as human beings procreate, has absolutely nothing at all to do with babies. That in fact abortion is the means that allows women to compete equally with men in a society consumed with sexual gratification. That it's actually a woman's choice, after sex and after she's gotten pregnant from said sex, that decides whether she is ready for a clump of cells growing inside her, gets to become a human being with moral status once it's left the womb. Yet these same people that believe this inane, garbled nonsense are telling people they should have no choice on whether or not they want to get a vaccine pumped into their body. That if people refuse, they should be cast out of society. It's no longer my body, my choice. It's do what the government tells you to do. And they'll hold this belief right alongside their my body, my choice belief when it comes to abortion, even though what they believe about it is entirely incorrect and immoral. It's cognitive dissonance at its finest. They're so protective of abortion that they will not only fail to see the hypocrisy between their my body, my choice belief and that of the say no to vax mandate crowd, that when they think abortion is being threatened by such things as these heartbeat laws, they will envision cruel and barbaric means, directed at men of course, that they would like to see made into laws as a retaliation for so supposedly violating a woman's bodily autonomy, such as requiring young men to get a vasectomy until they're deemed fit to become a father, or even cutting pieces of a man's penis off for every pregnancy he creates, apparently failing to see that such suggestions just prove that sex is the real issue. If pro-abortion women don't want the responsibility of having to carry a child, then don't have sex. Which always makes it ironic when they start calling for sex strikes, as if that is somehow going to offend the Republicans and conservatives calling for abortion restrictions. Yet they do it because Democrats and the leftists have no idea what the right's actual positions on these issues are. They think we're the ones being hypocrites, infringing on their so-called constitutional right to abortion and the ability to control your own bodies, while screaming, "My body, my choice," about vaccines. Yet it's the conservatives on the right that have always been consistent when it comes to these two issues. No one should be able to force you or coerce you into putting something into your body. This includes a vaccine just as much as it includes sexual acts. The difference is the left want to have a get-out-of-consequences escape hatch in the form of abortion on their side, leaving the right no way to get out of the consequences of being forced to take a vaccine. As once you take it, that's it. You have it. I mean, people can't even sue if they have adverse effects due to it. They're just screwed. Yet the left not only want to have their escape hatch, but the result of having it is the killing of the human life that is growing inside the womb. A separate, unique human life that resulted from the choice you made to have sex, and that has its own unique body.
We've already made the choice. Now you have to understand it.
Sadly, I don't think they ever will. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. You can find me on most social media sites talking about culture and politics. So do look me up and say hello. And take care and God bless.